Hi, welcome to Books and Bocadillos. My name is Maria Andrea. This is attempt number 3 at filming this video, so I might sound and look a little jaded. I am drinking a Zevia peach iced tea, and this is the follow-up to my holiday hangover series, part 1, The Past. In the previous video, I talked about a haul. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about buddy reads, group reads, book club reads, and end of year reading. I might not get to all the reading in this one video because I'm only allowed 30 minutes, but I may need to do another video. Let's get started. Okay, so buddy reads and book clubs. I read Lillian Boxfish Takes a Walk with Melinda from A Web of Stories and her Discord, her friends on Discord. And that was really great. Thank you, Melinda, for hosting that. I'd been wanting to read that book for a really long time, and I knew that it was a book that I wanted to read on the new year or close to the new year because it's about an octogenarian woman that takes a stroll on New Year's Eve, and you go back in time between her present day stroll through the city and the people she's meeting, the places, the landmarks that she's seeing are then triggering thoughts about her past. And it's such a reflective book. It's a memorable character. Loved Lillian Boxfish. Want to revisit her story time and time again. 5 stars. Then I am doing the Read What You Own challenge. So one of the exceptions for book buying is that if I find a book that is a collectible, like it's a book that I've read and loved and I don't own physically, but I want to own a physical copy, and I kind of find like a rare opportunity to buy it for whatever reason, then I will allow myself. So what happened was I read this book, loved it, had it on my Kindle, absolutely loved it. I also did the audio, so I did Kindle audio. And then I had already purchased that prior to the Read What You Own challenge. Then it was mid-December, and our community book club was having a Christmas party at a bookstore I went by. It's a used bookstore, used indie bookstore. And I found this UK edition, Lillian Boxfish Takes a Walk by Kathleen Rooney. I love this cover more than the US cover. It has French flaps, this beautiful yellow. The sticker just fell out. So I bought it because I want it to live on my shelves, and I thought this was a beautiful copy. And when again am I going to find it secondhand, and I don't have to buy it later? Love this book. I'm glad it lives on my shelves now. Then I organize a book club with friends, and there's 4 of us in the book club, and we meet not 3 times a year is the frequency. 3 times a year. We tend to meet like April, August, and November, December. So our end of the year reading pick was Elena Knows. We all first read it in Spanish. So my 2 friends, there's 4 of us, but 3 of us read the book. So the 3 of us, my 2 friends, they read the physical original Spanish version of Elena Sabe, and I listened to the audio in Spanish. I had purchased a copy some time back after I heard Jen Campbell talking about it, and I wanted to go back and forth in the translation. Like I wanted to take it in Spanish first, but then come and like give it another read through in English. So I did that, and I would give Elena Sabe in Spanish 4 stars, and I gave Elena Knows the English 3 stars. I am a translation nerd, and I couldn't help but think there were some choices the translator made that I questioned. It just didn't seem to have the same kind of rhythm and beat that the Spanish book had. The way that the Spanish flows is just different. So it's a great story. Definitely recommend. This is a book about an octogenarian woman with Parkinson's. The portrayal of her and her disease process with Parkinson's is exquisite. It's beautiful. It's heart-wrenching. It feels very real. Like you can see her and her experience as having a disability, um, having a life-threatening illness, an irreversible life-threatening illness. This book does create really interesting conversation about life and choice and bodies, and there is discussion of abortion and suicide, so trigger warnings for those things. Also end of life decisions, how one chooses to, how do you decide about end of life and death and dying. So yeah, it's a really important story. It's a really well told story. I just wish that the English had a different flow, like the Spanish did, but still a great read. And then book 3, this is our community book club at a local indie bookstore. They read they've read How Lucky by Will Leitch, I think. The blurb from Stephen King says, "A fantastic novel. You are going to like this a lot." I liked it. I can't say that I liked it a lot, Stephen King, but I liked it. I can't give it a rating. I haven't rated this yet. I am an extrovert, so I process things aloud and externally, which is why having a booktube channel is a challenge, and that's why I'm here, because I have a hard time processing internally, and it helps to process aloud and externally. So oftentimes when I go into a book club meeting, I don't yet know how to talk about it, but as there's discussion, and then I'm brought into the discussion, and then I share my thoughts, and then I hear myself sharing the thoughts, and I hear them in a different way, and then I process them that way. So I really don't know. I'm going to wait to meet with the book club to decide my rating on this book. Like I said, I liked it. Not a lot, but I liked it. And it's interesting. Also, with a main character with a disability. So, yeah, it's, the voice of this main character, as I was reading it, it really reminded me of, and I was really glad I had read Disability Visibility, but I also read The Year of the Tiger by Alice Wong. It's Alice Wong's memoir. And that book, Alice Wong's book, is so great. It stayed with me. And while I was reading this book, I had experience, I remembered Alice Wong's perspective on certain themes related to disability, and I think it was a really helpful book. So that book really helped me process this book when I was reading it, and I'm really glad I had that previous experience. I don't know. I'm gonna wait. I have thoughts, but I think I need to process them before I can share them on the internet. So those are the 3 books that I had for book clubs and buddy reads. For my end of year bingo, I created a bingo card, and I shared this in a short back in December. So the column B was books I already owned. Column I was books that I've been influenced to read by other content creators here on BookTube. Column N were books that I wanted to reread. Column G was the get to it columns. These are books that I started at one point, had not finished, and I really wanted to get them done. And O was older protagonists, because I really, really wanted to read older protagonists at end of year. So in terms of older protagonists, you've already heard me say Lillian Boxfish Takes a Walk, an octogenarian woman. Elena knows has Elena, an octogenarian woman with Parkinson's. So those 2 were older protagonists. But the my bingo was actually the full column of get to it books that I'd started, hadn't finished it. And really that was one of my biggest goals at end of year, was finish what I started. I had started some books that I really just wanted to get them off my shelves to like kind of like be done with them. So these are the books that I read. Nevermoor, The Trials of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. I rated this 5 stars. Love this. This was perfect timing. I read this book in December, at the beginning of December, and this book actually does take place during the month of December. There's events here that happen in the book around Christmas, and so I really felt like it set the mood for the holiday season, and I really enjoyed it. This is a book that I want to live on my shelves. This is a book that I want my nephews to read when they're older. This is a protagonist that I loved and rooted for, and I'm really glad I read it. It was recommended to me as a book that Enneagram 2s would love and should read, and I am an Enneagram 2, and I did love it. I'm glad I read it. Thank you for the recommendation. Highly recommend. The next book, The Last Equation of Isaac Severy by Nova Jacobs. This was a Book of the Month book from March 2018. I used to have a Book of the Month subscription, but I ended up accumulating books and not reading them, and so I decided to cancel the subscription until I finished reading the books that I had already purchased through the Book of the Month subscription. So I had started this years ago, and I hadn't finished it. So this is a book that lived upstairs on my little table, my little coffee table upstairs. And when I would lounge, I would pick it up. I'd read a chapter or two, put it down, pick it up, read a little bit. So I've been reading this in morsels. This is a slow-paced book, which is why I would read it in morsels. I selected this book expecting that it would be a mystery thriller kind of a book. This did not feel very much like mystery or thriller. It didn't really have that vibe. It felt more like a family drama, secrets unfolding. Wasn't scary. It wasn't really intriguing. It wasn't like a telenovela read where you're feeling like, ooh, there's a lot of intrigue and these characters, and it wasn't fast paced. It was very slow, family drama, rich people problems. If it had been rich people problems and fast paced, I would have liked it, because I do like rich people problems and that are fast paced. But this, I really wanted, I would have wanted it to feel like Knives Out, but it wasn't like that. I really love Knives Out. But I guess this book just didn't align. My reading experience with my expectations didn't align. I gave this book 2 stars. I was expecting something different. But if you like a book about messy, complicated families, characters that are not very compelling or lovable, they're kind of doing things that, a lot of rich people problems, and you like a slow burn, try it. You might like it. And then I read Blackmail and Bibingka by Mia P. Manansala. I've talked about this series here so much. Tita Rosie's Kitchen Mystery series. Love this series. I love these characters. I love Mia P. Manansala. When I read her books, especially in this one, it felt like her voice is really coming through. I felt like the author is speaking directly to me, the reader. And I really like that. I like that there's recipes in the end, at the back of the book. The recipes are really good. Do you recommend those if you picked them up? This book was not my favorite, though. So Arsenic and Adobo, I think I gave that one 4 stars. Halo Halo Homicide was book 2. I think I gave that 4 stars. Blackmail Bibingka, I gave it 3 stars. I really, really wanted to love this. It's set around the Christmas holiday, too. There's Christmas in here. Christmas parties and things like that. But this was not my favorite. Am I still committed? Yes, I'm still committed to the series. I will read Murder and Maimon. I already have it on my shelves, ready to pick up when the time is right. And I really wanted to finish this book and be like, oh my gosh, I have to get to book 4. And it just didn't leave me that way. I finished it and I was like, okay, I'll get to book 4 when I get to book 4. But I really wanted to feel like that spark of yes, let's move on. Yeah. So more to come. Oops, more to come on that. And then I read Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell, and I love this. I think I gave this 5 stars. I must have given this 4 or 5 stars. I really, really love this. This takes place in 1580 England. It follows Agnes, the wife of William Shakespeare, and her family. They have 2 kids, and they have 3 kids. They have 3 kids, and 2 are twins. And Shakespeare makes an appearance like on and off. He's not the main character. It's mostly around the kids and Agnes, and the story is told through Agnes's perspective. This does take place during the Black Death Plague in England, and if you're avoiding pandemic books, I get it, but this book has the most interesting storytelling element of how the plague came to England. There's a section in here where you follow a flea, and you see how the flea brings the plague home to these characters. And it's just fascinating. I love this book. I am looking forward to reading Hamlet, especially after reading this book. I mean, rereading Hamlet, and anything she writes, Maggie O'Farrell, I have a long list of books to get to that she's written. Love her. Lastly, for the end of year bingo, the 5th book in the bingo column, Nuestra Parte de Noche by Mariana Enriquez. I started this book in October. This is a horror. This is my favorite kind of horror. This is historical fiction horror. This is psychological, sociological, political horror. There is politics. There is there's a section in here that's an essay that feels like an anthropological study. It really connects everything. Mariana Enriquez is a wonderful storyteller. Just blew my mind. This book is slow, and it does require time and patience. Initially, when I first started it, I really struggled with it. But struggled with it in the sense of like feeling like I'm being stretched. This is a book that challenged me as a reader. It is very different than what I tend to read. And I feel like a lot of the times horror books tend to feel diluted. Like they tend to feel like a horror pop song. This book felt like horror, like deep, dark horror. Dark horror. This was so good. The first part of it was initially, like I said, for me, a challenge. So I had to take a pause, which is why it fit this challenge, because I'd started it and hadn't finished it. When I was looking at the end of year bingo and the books that I wanted to read, I'd started this in October, left it to the side because it was, at one point, there's a scene in here when they're in the cemetery, and it really did send like chills through my body. There's talks about a cult. There's family dynamics, family relationships that are difficult and compelling all at once. Oh my God, I don't even know how to. It's just it. Mariana Enriquez brings the Argentinian history, that La Historia Argentina, to like reality. You follow this family. So it starts out in the 1960s in London, England, and then it goes through up until the 80s in Latin America, and the family has to leave Argentina because of the occupation and the revolution. They leave through Paraguay, end up in Brazil, I believe, if I remember things correctly. And it's just a saga. Like I said, I stopped it. And then what helped me get through this book, honestly, was listening to interviews with the author. So I started listening, just like, I was fascinated. Like, what? Like, how? Like, where is this coming from? And knowing that it's based on like true political events, like, I felt like I really wanted to know more about the history. And I'm a history nerd. I love connecting what I'm reading with the history. That's why I love historical fiction, and historical fiction horror is my jam. So I listened to interviews with her, and she talked about how people receive this novel and criticize that it's like so horrific. But she was like, try reading like the history. Like, this is based on historical, like, nonfiction is horror. The stuff that people have experienced in Latin America is horror. Why do we criticize it when it's in fiction, wrapped up in a fiction book? Like, it's based on real life horror that happened to real life people. And she also said that her favorite novel, in one of the interviews that she gave, she said about how her favorite novel was Wuthering Heights, and how elements of Wuthering Heights inspired the way she wrote this. And so immediately I was like, I have to pick up Wuthering Heights. I'm on my third reread of Wuthering Heights, just because of Mariana Enriquez and her writing. I love this book. This is 5 stars. This is a book that I recommend. I haven't read the English. This is the Spanish. I don't really want to read the English. After having the experience I had with Elena Sabe and Elena knows, I am just very happy to stick with the Spanish here for Nuestra Parte de Noche by Mariana Enriquez. Our Share of Night is the title in English. I've heard wonderful things about the translation, the English translation. It's won awards. It's a great book. People love it. But I'm not going to reread it in English. I'm going to stick to rereading in Spanish if I pick it up again. This is a great book. Initially, I struggled, but I persevered. Listened to her interviews. She has a brilliant mind, and this book just stretched me. Like, I feel like I grew as a reader having read this book. Did you have a book like that in 2023? Did you have a book that stretched you as a reader, that was beyond what you usually pick up, or what you're comfortable, a book that's beyond your comfort zone? This book stretched me behind my comfort zone. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to know what book stretched you in 2023. I'm going to take a pause there. I'm going to create another video on Guadalupe Reinas, but I'll end it with this, ending on a 5-star note. So not a bad end of year bingo. There were other books that I read from the bingo. Let me tell you what other books I finished. I read from the mixed up files of Mrs. Basil. Didn't love it. If you want to know why, ask me, I guess, in the comments, but I'm not going to get into it. I reread Olive Kitteridge. I love Olive Kitteridge, and I'm going to read Olive again in February, and I'm so excited. I love Olive Kitteridge. Elizabeth Strout. She is great. I reread Mr. Dickens and His Carol by Samantha Silva. Love that book. I think I gave it 5 stars my first time around. I think I gave it another 5 stars all over again in my reread. I love Samantha Silva. I want to read her other book. I haven't finished. I haven't touched it yet, but I own it. That's it. Those are the other books that I picked up. Thank you so much for watching. I am getting really excited here on my desk. I will come back and talk about the Guadalupe Reinas readathon that I participated in. Hasta la próxima.